Hi, I'm Scott with Starkey Family, Fixing and Rigging Up. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Now today, we're going to change an alternator. Okay, so I want to start this off right off the bat. You'll see this little rig up. That's for a different video that I'm going to be shooting here later. So right now we're going to be focused on the alternator, and the reason being is because the store is going to be closing here in a little while. So we need to get that off, go to the store, get a new alternator, have them change the pulley out, then come back. Okay, here's the tools that we're going to use. This right here is just a small pry bar, 1/2-inch drive. You're going to need that for the pulley or the tensioner for the actual belt. You're going to need a 5/8 socket, 7/16 socket, your ratchet, and this right here is kind of a specialty item. This is an extension. And let me show you what you can do. If you push it all the way down in there, it will lock, okay? But if you pull it up, you see how the socket swivels? This will help you out quite a bit. And here again, this is the way that the end is actually shaped. Can you see that? That way the socket can actually move. Okay. You see this head? This is simple. This right here is the tensioner. And do you see this little square right here? That is just going to simply fit into place. So what we're going to do is we take this, we just put it in, and now all I'm going to do is move that with my hand. When I do that, can you see the tension coming off of the belt? Let me see if I can do this here. Okay, that's how simple it is. And then you just simply turn or let the wrench rest up there. It won't fall out. It's nice and tight. But then you've got your belt here, you've got your wrench here when you're ready. So let's move to the next thing. We're going to move to the power wires. Okay, so this will be fairly simple. You're just going to take your smaller socket that you picked out. Now, I did not. I'm telling you right now, you should unhook the battery, but I did not. So I'm just going to simply pin the wires up. So basically, you're just going to undo them. And of course we dropped that one on the ground. Let's see here, where are you at? There you are. We'll grab you here in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to get to the next one. Now when you go to take these off, you shouldn't have to have a lot of tension to it. But just remember, if you're buying another alternator, it doesn't matter if any of this stuff snaps off. Who cares? You're going to get a new alternator. It's going to be all new. So let me go ahead and pin these wires up now. So I just simply took the wires and pinned them where they're not going to move onto the air conditioning line. Pretty simple. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to take the 4 bolts out and remove the alternator. Okay, I just got one bolt out, but I wanted to tell you something kind of interesting on this. These bolts here don't really come out real easy because they're kind of wedged in there. So when you want to do this, you're wanting to take out the bottom bolts first and then just work on one of the top ones. Okay, the reason being is this alternator is very heavy. So when you get to the point that you're at the last bolt, you don't want this alternator to drop while you're trying to get a bolt out there. So to make everything simpler, just leave one end on the top. Okay, so I'm taking out the last bolt right now, and this is where this alternator is actually going to drop. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one hand press on the alternator. That way it does not move. Okay, last one. Now you're going to grab it and you're going to pull it straight out at you. Simple. Let's talk a minute on why I'm changing the alternator out. It rolls over fine, as you can see. But the problem is, on my voltage gauge inside the truck, it was charging at 12.1 volts on the low end, and it was charging at 15.5 on the high end. So when I was at an idle, it would be charging 12.1 volts. When I'm going down the road, it will get up to 15.5. Now, what's going to happen is, most likely the voltage regulator is going bad inside this, or there could be something else going on. But when you see your voltage gauge fluctuating that much, your alternator's days are numbered. Now, not only could the alternator go out and just completely quit charging altogether and leave you stranded, but this will ruin your batteries. You're either getting not enough charge or you're getting too much of a charge. So just keep that in mind. You might say, oh, it's charging even better today. Well, that charging even better may cost you new batteries. And considering in my truck I have 4 1000 cold cranking amp Caterpillar batteries, that's a lot of money right there. Now you might ask me, well, what should it be charging at? It should be charging at right about 14 volts. So you've got this voltage regulator in there, and that's what actually keeps everything from overcharging and undercharging. So when your batteries get lower, it kicks in, tells your alternator, hey, we need some power. When it gets up too high, the voltage regulator says, hey, we got too much power, turn it off. So that's exactly what happens. So a good parameter is, on my truck, my Columbia, it's a 2007 model Columbia, is about 13.7 to 14.2. That right there is about a normal, but it should average right about 13.9 to 14. If it starts varying very much out of that, you know your alternator is about done. Okay, I'm back from the parts store, and I went ahead and traded off my old alternator for a new one. So let's do the unboxing of the new alternator. This is just a foam protective pad. Pretty nice. Now, I do want to talk about something here. When you buy a new alternator, or let me rephrase this, a remanufactured alternator, most generally you do not get a new pulley with it. So make sure that when you go to the parts store, whether they want a core or not, you have them pull this pulley off and put it on your new alternator. Most parts stores do not charge one thing, that's included. Now, a lot of times if you buy a new alternator, they will come with these, but still not always. Now, here's the difference between getting a remanufactured one and a new one. A new one is, well, it's new. So a remanufactured one is, when you take your cores in, they will go to a remanufacturer plant or some type of electric generator place, or whoever buys them. And they will actually clean the casings and the parts that are inside of them. They will inspect them and replace what's bad. Now, in saying that, you may still get some old parts inside of these, but they've been tested, they've been cleaned, and you save a good bit of money doing this, okay? If I was to go to the dealership and to buy another alternator for my truck, a brand new one, it's about $450 to $500, okay? This alternator here, over at the parts store, which is a remanufactured one, was $269. So you can save about half getting a remanufactured one versus buying a brand new one. Now, I have went around and of buying new ones before. They don't last any longer. The problem is you've got to look at how many miles these trucks get driven, the weather, the temperatures, the dirt, everything out on the road that gets collected up in the engine compartment. That's what wears these out. So just keep that in mind. There are ways to save some money. This is one of them. But make sure you get a warranty on them. If you do not get a warranty, don't buy it. Go somewhere else. Okay, now here's the difference between going to a good place and a bad place to buy a remanufactured alternator. Okay? A good place will give you the results of everything when it's tested. A bad place will just throw it in a box, no padding, no nothing, and there you are. So this is what I've actually got. Now, here's something else. My engine is fairly clean right in this area, so I'm not going to have a big issue. But let's just say your engine's not clean, and you're setting this alternator back on here. Well, you're going to have vibration. If you have dirt and debris, you cannot get everything completely tight like it needs to be. It will work its way free. That's what this is for. This right here will clean all the spots, as you can see, without damaging anything. So, it's just something to think about. A little bit of cleanup can go a long way. Hold these while I use this, so I won't be able to film this part. But I'm going to clean these up just as well. We want to make sure that we hit the threads, because when I installed an alternator on last time, I used anti-seize. So we need to get the old anti-seize off the threads. Okay, so now I've got those actually cleaned up. The threads right in here is all that matters. This right here won't even be used. So let me go into anti-seize. Why do you want to use this? Well, have you ever tried to break a bolt loose in something and it's rusted in there or corroded in, and then the bolt head actually snaps off? That's why. If we put this onto the threads, then this being steel, the bracket that this is actually going to be setting in to hold the alternator is aluminum. Those naturally corrode together, sometimes breaking one another. So this stuff is very, very cheap. You can buy it at any automotive store. A bottle like this right here, which is 8 ounces, if you are in a garage, it will last you probably a year. But anyways, let me go ahead and show you how I coat the threads. Pull it out of the bottle, it's going to have like a little brush on it. Basically, all you're going to do, you see this right here? You're just going to paint them threads. That's basically all you're going to do. So I'll show you one after I get done, what it looks like, because you don't have to use a lot of this. Okay, so this is what the threads will look like after you paint the threads with the anti-seize. Like I said, you don't have to use a lot, and this stuff is not going to dry too easy. So you're basically just going to put this on here, screw it in, and forget about it. And then when you go to change the alternator again, guess what? You'll be able to get your bolts out with no problems. Okay, so now it's time to set the new alternator in place. And keep in mind, these are very heavy. So, just like before, you're going to put it where it needs to go. You're going to hold it down, just hold it flat up against the cradle. Now you're going to put the first one in on the very top. You're going to try and line this up. Okay. And then you're just going to screw this one here in, just enough to hold it. Now you're going to go to the next one. Just screw it in there, enough to hold it. So now you don't have to worry about it dropping. So you want to make sure you do the top ones first. Then you're going to go down here to the bottom. Slide your washer up a little bit. Push that one in. Work it in with your hands. Okay. You're going to slide this up a little bit again, so you can get around this pipe. You're going to move this one here in. Just kind of hand tight. Now, it's still going to wiggle a little bit, and that's fine. But now, as I was saying, this has a swivel on it. So now, it'll swivel. You want to actually tighten the bottom up first. Just lift up a little bit. That takes the tension off. Okay, don't tighten it all the way down. Just a little bit snug. When you get to the point, okay? That way, you can get in here and line your next one up, and you can actually still take the tension off of it. Okay, now you're just going to simply pull up on it, tighten it, tighten the bottom one. Now, you're just going to simply come up here to the top one. You don't have to hold or anything. There's no tension. By the way, my wife is holding the phone for me this time. Okay, move over to the next one. Tighten, 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 and tighten. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the belt on. So I'm going to slide it back up over onto the air conditioning there. Now you're going to look around, make sure that everything is still lined up on the pulleys. And it is. So remember that bar I left in place? Well, guess what? It's still there. So now you're going to press it forward, which moves the tensioner, which now allows me to feed this belt on here. Okay, so I've got the belt on, and as you see, that's how you do it. Once again, before you move on to the next step, you want to go through and make sure that your belt is on the inside of all these little grooves. Because when you loosen it up, it can come undone on any of these little pulleys. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to have to put some wires on the alternator. Now, do you see that? That's going to have to be cleaned up. Same thing on this one. So, how do you clean them up? Same way we did the bolts. So, let me go ahead and clean these up real quick. So now, as you see, I got the terminals there pretty well cleaned off with that wire wheel on both sides. Not bad. So, now I want to talk about the next thing. Hardware. So, this one here we're going to keep because I don't have any screws this size. But this one right here, you see the color of it? It's silver. It's got to go. Okay, so what I want to tell you about is the hardware. You saw that was silver. That is just a standard grade, okay? You see these right here? These are grade 5. Okay, that means that it is a harder metal than what standard is. A lot harder. So when your metal is a lot harder, a lot stronger, it's very difficult for it to actually rust to something, okay? So the thread that these will go on are actually standard. These right here are harder. So when you go to actually take these off, it's still going to be fine. Now, you see this right here? It is rusted, but it's still in fairly good shape. Okay, it'd have to be cleaned up if you wanted to use it. But guess what? That is the same thing as this. And it has been about, I'm guessing maybe 2.5, 3 years since I changed the alternator last. And these actually came off no problem. Now, if it would have been those silver ones that you saw on the alternator, not so easy. So, if you go to any store, you can get these at the parts store or whatever. These right here over at a tractor supply store, I bet you I paid no more than maybe a nickel, maybe 10 cents for. So, just something for you to think about. Okay, so now it's time to take the old hardware off. So, that's broke free. And that one there was just simply a 7/16. I think this alternator here, I can't remember, but I think it actually has a different size hardware. Okay, I'll set this down. Grab the next socket. Now this one here, I know for sure it is a different size. This one here is actually a 3/8. So let me get this off here. Okay, that's broken. Now, just like the bolts on the alternator holding it up, we're going to put anti-seize on this one here. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to start hooking up wires. At the point where we're going to start hooking up wires. Now, I got my anti-seize on the screw, so let me go ahead and put this in. So now let me go ahead and lock that on. You don't want to over tighten it because you can strip it out. Okay, so the negative's actually attached to the side of the case. So we're going to take the positive and put it on this terminal right here. Okay, so now the way this one here is going to go is first a washer, positive wire, washer, lock washer, and then the nut. So now, let me go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, there it is. So now we're done on this. Okay, I'm in the truck now and I just wanted to show you this. You zoom in. There's my voltmeter, and as you can see, it's reading 14.2, 14.3. That's all normal. Starkey family, fixing rigging up. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope you were able to save some money. And if you followed what I showed you, you should be in good shape. If you would, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you.